こんばんは。お忙しいところご来場ありがとうございます。私はアメリカ・シアトルから来た柏木と申します。私は約4年徳島に住んでいて英語を教えています。私の両親はチベットで生まれました。そして1959年にチベットを離れ、私はインドで生まれました。実際に冬季アメリカに移住しました。今からコアナさんが私のプレゼンテーションを訳してくださいます。
皆さんこんばんは。今日忙しい中から、今日のチベットの公演に来ていただいてありがとうございます。
Tibetan Uprising Day is an important day in Tibetan history. It is March 10th, 1959 today. On this day, 1959, is when Tibetans rose up and protested the illegal occupation of their country by the Chinese, and as a result, thousands of Tibetans brutally were killed. As you can see, this is Tibet. It's located north of India and north of Nepal, just west of China. Tibet has an average altitude of over 14,000 feet above sea level, about 4,200 meters. In order to understand Tibetan history properly, it's very important to understand the life of the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader and head of state of Tibet. He was born on July 6, 1935. He is recognized as the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama. China first invaded Tibet in 1949. Shortly after communism rose to power, Mao Zedong established the new People's Republic of China. At that time, Tibet had its own government, its own language, its own currency, its own postal system, and its own legal system. Make no mistake about it, Tibet was an independent country prior to China's invasion. In 1951, the Dalai Lama sent a delegation of his representatives to China to talk about the issues surrounding Tibet. Prior to 1951, China had already moved into Tibet. These talks turned into an ultimatum, basically sign the 17-point agreement or China would invade Tibet. So his delegation was forced to sign the 17-point agreement under duress. After several years of trying to live within the framework of the 17-point agreement, China slowly and surely started to break several points within the 17-point agreement, including restricting religious practice and starting to interfere in the internal structure of Tibet and its government. After which, on March 10, 1959, Tibetans rose up and protested their occupation of their country, and as a result, we have Tibetan Uprising Day. Now, let me ask you a question. Do these killings of innocent, unarmed people protesting against the government sound familiar to you? Do you remember the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989? Unarmed Chinese students took to the streets protesting for more democracy, less corruption, and more accurate press coverage. And as a result, thousands of innocent Chinese students were killed. There are several human rights violations occurring in China today. The Chinese government continues to suppress dissenting opinions and maintains political control over the legal system, resulting in arbitrary and sometimes abusive judicial regime. The lack of accountability by the government means that abuses go unchecked, resulting in Tiananmen Square Massacre and Tibetan Uprising Day. There is no one overseeing the government. The government has the free reins to create laws and also break their laws. There are even more human rights violations occurring in Tibet, including cultural genocide. The Chinese government is intent on killing the Tibetan people and its culture. Over 1.2 million Tibetans have died as a direct result of Chinese occupation. That is approximately 17% of the total population before the invasion. There continues to be no freedom of speech, no freedom of assembly, no freedom of press, and no freedom of religion within Tibet. And if there is any opposition to Chinese occupation in today, the result is imprisonment and torture. Today there are over 250 Tibetan political prisoners in China, many of whom simply were holding a picture of the Dalai Lama and they were taken. And my final and most important message is, I ask you tonight to please learn more about the Tibetan struggle. You can start by visiting the website for the Liaison Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for Japan and East Asia. This website is in Japanese and provides specific information about events and how you can get involved. The address is on the flyer that I provided. Please, share what you have learned with other people. It's no secret that China and Japan have a strained relationship. China has never been able to forgive Japan for the war between Japan and China from 1937 to 1945. China has continued almost every year to demand apologies by the Japanese government. Koizumi, in 2005, on the World War II anniversary, apologized to the Chinese. In 1995, Prime Minister Murayama apologized to the Chinese. However, in over 48 years, there has never been an apology to the Tibetans. Unapologetic, the Chinese government today continues these atrocities towards Tibetans. Just last year in 2006, innocent Tibetan pilgrims trying to escape the oppression in Tibet, Chinese soldiers shot and killed the pilgrims as they were walking. This is the type of violence that is occurring in Tibet today still. So, this is the reality today for Tibetans. However, with the help of the Japanese people and the world, I believe that Tibetans will once again rise up. Okay, so let's move on to the movie because I shortened the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes. And this movie is based on Tibetan history from 1949 and 59. What I've been talking about, this movie will show you as a motion picture.